Hi everybody, this video is in response to subscriber our three little birds. Hey girl. And she wanted me to make a video on how to add pockets to a dress. There are a couple things you need to think about. If you're a beginner, you want to start with a dress or a skirt that is not lined. It just makes everything a lot easier. You need to take into consideration how fitted the dress is. If it's like a gathered waist and very full, you know, you probably don't have to worry too much about what I'm going to talk about. But if it's a straight skirt, a maxi dress, a pencil skirt, you need to consider some things. Now, the way my mind works when I start considering doing a job like this, do I carry weight in my lower abs? Do I have large hips or thighs? Because when you place your pockets, you need to know where they're going to end, and is it going to cause extra bulk in that area, or is it going to cause lumps because you're carrying your keys or your wallet or your phone or whatever. If it's a fitted skirt and you have your keys and you drop your keys in there, then you're going to have this big lumpy bulge on your leg or on your hips or whatever. So just think about those things and try to decide what you'll be carrying in your pockets. So and another thing is really important. Now, I don't know if you guys have actually seen this dress. I don't think I talked about it in any of my videos, but it might have been on my mannequin in the background. I made a V-neck maxi dress. It's blue and white stripes. And after I made it, then my daughter was saying, you should put pockets in it. So I opened up the side seams and I put pockets in, and I designed my pockets according to what I was going to wear, or according to what I was going to put in them and how it looked when I was wearing it. I didn't want you to be able to see that I had anything in my pockets. Now, another thing that you need to consider is how wide open that you want the opening to be. When I made my pockets, I measured this part of my hand, okay? But when we put our hands in our pockets, we don't slide them in sideways unless they were here. You know what I'm saying? There's usually at an angle. So you need to measure from here to here, which is going to be wider than the width of your hand. If you're kind of concerned, or you have a skirt or a dress that already has a pocket, then you can measure that and you know how wide the opening needs to be. Another thing you need to consider is how long you need your pocket to be, because when you put a pocket in a dress or a skirt or a pair of pants, the pocket needs to be anchored somewhere. And this has like an empire waist, so it needs to be anchored here. And I think I'm going to do one side anchored and one side not anchored so that you'll know why we need to anchor it. I don't want you to think, oh, I just won't anchor it, and then you run into problems and then you have to redo the whole thing. I'm going to show you what kind of mistakes, what a mistake that would be to not anchor it somewhere. So with that in mind, I'm going to get to the table and I'm going to show you how to design your pocket. Okay, before we get started on drafting the pattern, I just want to tell you, this is like my 5th time recording this part, and the reason is because I'm having a hard time with lighting. I had it in the other side of my room and it was often dark and kind of weird, and even though I had all my lights, depending on the day and with the time of day, the lighting is always very different. So I moved my table right by the light or the window, so hopefully I have good natural light, but now it's sometimes my mat looks washed out. So I apologize. I'm still working on the lighting and getting everything right. So with that in mind, hopefully you can see the dress and what I'm doing there. Okay, so When you put a pocket in a dress or a skirt, you need to have an anchor point, and that is done at the waistline. If you have a skirt, it's done in the waistband. If it's like this, it's going to be up here. Unless they're very small pockets, it will probably work out. But generally, you need an anchor point for your pocket. It just hangs better. It's going to look better. And so because this is an empire waist, the top of your pocket is going to go quite high. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to measure an 1/8 of an inch past the waist seam, because I'm going to anchor it to the seam allowance of the empire waist. So I'm going to make this pocket 15 inches long. So I marked it here. And then, you know, when you put on your dress, you need to mark where you want your pocket to start, which we talked about a few minutes ago. So I'm going to start this one 4 3/4 inches down. I'm going to give it a 6-inch opening, and then I'm going to end it at 15 inches from here. So I have my marks. Now, I am going to anchor one pocket, and then on the other side, I'm not going to anchor a pocket. And again, if it's really light stuff you're putting in your pocket, it shouldn't be a big deal. But if you have a heavy phone, it might make a difference. So I'm going to show you the difference. Okay, the first thing we need to do is create basically our baseline, which is going to be the side, the part that goes into the side seam. So I'm going to make a 15-inch line. And from here, we're going to make the marks that we need, that we put on the dress. So 4 3/4. And then I did a 6-inch opening. And then we have the bottom of the pocket. Now, I am going to mark here. I'm going to mark out a 1/2 inch on the pocket openings. I have to do this real thick marker because I tried pencil and I couldn't even see it in the video. I'll do the seam allowances in a lighter marking. Okay, now when I make a pocket, I knew exactly what I wanted to put in my pocket. So I kind of designed my pocket around that. So I wanted to put my phone in my pocket, and I wanted to set down like this. Now, this is not like necessary. This is just how I think. I want to make sure I'm going to have room in here for my phone. And so I'm going to, I don't do it really tight around the phone. So a basic shape, I wanted a flat bottom pocket. And then just, it only needs to come up straight like this just to fit the phone. And then up here, I'm going to, and this is, there's no reason for this other than I don't want this to extend too far out into the front of the dress. So I'm just going to make a line here. Just kind of start that curve there. And from here, you can just do a straight line if you want. And that's going to be my pocket. You can round it, you can whatever. I just wanted the flat bottom pocket, and I need it to be tall, high enough to go into my waistband. I'm going to square this off though. And this is where these rulers come in really handy, because if you don't have a clear ruler like this, you're having to mark. This here, I can go, okay, I know that I want a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I align it to the 1/4 inch, and I just go all the way down, and it's done. And I can do it here. And then here. Now, the mistake I kept making on the other videos is I kept forgetting to put the seam allowance here. Let's turn around. And it was frustrating me so bad because I kept forgetting to put it here. And you will need that seam allowance when you sew your pocket in. Okay, so that's your pocket. So that's all it took for your pocket. You can see your hand's going to go in quite easily in here, instead of, like I mentioned before in the earlier in the video, where if it's too short, you're going to have a hard time getting your hand in there. You've got your seam allowances all the way around, and now it's time to cut it out. Okay, I have my fabric laid out, and it's going to be 4 layers thick because I need 2 pockets and 2 pieces of fabric for each pocket. Try to lay the straight line here on grain. I'm just going to eyeball it. All right, before we actually sew the pockets in, it's nice to prep the inside of your dress. So our measurements were 1/8 of an inch up here, four and 3/4, a 6-inch mark, and then from here a 15. Now the 15 doesn't really matter. We need to focus on the opening. So this is your opening, but we are going to take it 1/4 of an inch out because we have to take into consideration the seam allowance. So we just need to make sure that's opened up for that. And then I will mark the other side off camera. Okay, now that we have the opening done, we have to sew it right sides together. So my fabric doesn't really have much of a right side, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put my pocket inside, and I'm going to take the pocket opening with the seam allowance, and I'm going to pin it to the dress opening. Now, I would have used black, but I didn't have any black fabric, so I couldn't. So there is something that you can do when you sew a pocket in. This is actually something you need to do anyway, but if you have to use a different color, that you could minimize anybody seeing the different color if you don't want them to. When you do this, try not to pull the fabric. Now this dress is stretchy, so you have to really try not to stretch the fabric. When I have to keep repinning because sometimes when the pin goes through, it pulls this down and it's going to mess things up if you don't pin it right, if it's not lying correctly before you sew it. I think I need to go through my pins and get rid of the bent ones. Okay, so that one is pinned in. And I'm going to sew that one in, and then I'll do the same for the other side, and then I'll be back. Okay, I changed my mind. Instead of sewing it all together and showing you, I just pinned the other side in because it takes too much time and effort to move my camera and figure out the lighting again. So I pinned in both sides. The pockets are inside. So this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to sew this in on that side, and then on this side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because that's what the seam allowance is on the dress. So I want to make sure I don't disrupt that seam allowance from the waist going down. I don't want it to be weird looking. Also, when you sew this, now the dress is stretchy, the pocket fabric is not. I am going to sew with the stretchy side on the feed dogs. And the reason why is because, and I explained this in another video, when you have your presser foot, okay, your feed dogs are doing this, pushing it this way, and then your presser foot is pushing this way, so that you kind of have this, you'll have this ripple effect on the top if the stretchy material is up there. So the drag is going this way and the dogs are doing this. So you need the feed dogs to evenly feed the stretchy fabric, if that makes any sense. So anyway, that's it. And let's get started with the sewing. I'm having to feel for folds on the fabric, so I have to adjust that before I can keep going. Now we're going to flip it over and do the other side. Now before you do, go through and make sure your pins are still in place. One of mine came out, so I have to put it back in. Okay, and again, the stretchy fabric is going to be against the feed dogs. Going along, feel around. I can feel a fold on the underside, so make sure you take those out. Now I am not going to go over the pressing part. I do have a video on proper pressing and I can link that above. But you need to press out your pockets, pull them out this way and press them. And I would press the seams towards your pocket. I'll explain why I recommend that in just a second. Okay, before I show you what to do on the machine, I want you to see the pockets. I turned the dress inside out and I pressed my seams toward the pocket. Okay, and you can see the pocket coming together. Kind of an odd angle, but you can see the bottom of the pocket. There's the top that's going to be anchored to the waist. Now, let me open this up. What we're going to do is we're going to the sewing machine and we're going to sew right on this edge right here. And this is called understitching. And the reason why we do this is because when you turn your dress right side out, your pockets aren't going to roll out and you'll be able to see them. They're going to stay nice and flat and inside the dress like they're supposed to. So I'm going to get my machine back here and I'm going to just, right on the edge. Make sure it's on the pocket side, not the dress side. Now before you start sewing, make sure that your seam allowance is pressed to the pocket side. You know, let me clean these threads up real quick. Okay, I can feel it over there. And I'm just going to stitch on the very edge because your seam allowance is only 1/4 of an inch. So you don't need it too far away from the edge or you won't catch it. If you need to go slow to make sure you get a straight stitch, then go ahead and go slow. There's no rush. Now the other side. Okay, now all that's left to do is put your pockets together like you saw them before and just stitch around them. So I'm just going to start pinning. They don't have to be too close, especially if you have fabric that has nice body to it and no stretch. It's not going to be a big deal. So you can see right here where we started the pocket. I'm going to start from the seam allowance on the dress. Turn, and we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. Now we're just going to come all the way up to the seam allowance of the dress. And we'll just end it there. Now I'm going to flip it to the right side, the dress to the right side, and I will show you what it looks like after I press it. I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. As soon as you finish sewing the outside of the pocket, bring it up like this. Now this seam allowance folds down, but I'm going to press it up. I'm going to pin the top of the pocket right here, so you can see how it lays here. And I'm going to pin it there. I don't want anything getting caught in the seam. Now at this point you can just do a straight stitch across the top, or you can do a zigzag, and I'm thinking of doing a small zigzag only because it covers a wider area, and if you do a straight stitch it may not catch very well, or it may get under past the seam allowance. So I'm just going to do one on the edge. I'm just doing a narrow zigzag stitch. You can see it right here, about midway. It's just wide enough to fit in that seam allowance. Okay, now I'm going to go press it and show you what it looks like. Okay, I hope you liked that video. I hope it was easy enough to understand. And in the last pictures, I hope you can tell that a pocket that is not anchored really disrupts the smooth sidelines or the side seams of your dress. And then it's even worse when you put something in your pockets. So yeah, it's worth it, just that little extra time to just anchor it. You can tell in the photos of the anchored pocket with something in it, you can see a little sliver of blue. So if your pocket is the same color as your dress or your skirt or whatever, then you're not even going to be able to tell that there are pockets in the dress. So I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and hit the bell so you're notified when I upload more videos. And don't forget to share it if you know someone who can use it. Thanks. Bye.